Good afternoon again. We're still in room 4, this pro-business room of Madrid platform. We're traveling around Latin America. We'll travel to Buenos Aires this afternoon, Argentina. We're going to talk about cargo transport as a fundamental pillar of the whole Latin American region and how it affects Argentina. This is of high interest of all potential investors, those people doing business there as well. We are going to talk with FADEAC, the Argentinian Federation of Cargo Transport Companies. FADEAC is the Spanish acronym. And we also have Omar Monti in Buenos Aires, the Secretary for the Press and Institutional Relations of FADEAC. Omar, a very good afternoon to you. You already reached noon there, right? Yes, it's 2 p.m. in Argentina. I was telling all people attending this event that we are going to talk about the cargo transport as a fundamental element of the economy in Latin America. Yes, that's right. Well, my name is Omar Mando Monti. I'm Secretary for the Press and Institutional Relations at FADEAC, as you very well said. I welcome you to this pro-business area in Argentina. Our federation introduces itself to people active in the cargo transport in this very large country with 2,800,000 square kilometers. Are you following me? Can you hear me? Is there any sound problem? I can't hear you, but all right, I'll keep going if you are okay with it. As I was saying, Argentina is big. We've got 2,800,000 square kilometers. Argentina has this federation, FADEAC, with 42 chambers in different regions of the country, working on this cargo transport, road transport. This is a very special day for Argentinians. It is a very important date for our patriotic feeling, and we can provide information to you on all the characteristics of our country. We need to take into account the geography of Argentina. Cargo transport carries more than 90% of products around the country, be it for supermarkets, for factories. We highly depend on trucks, on lorries, if you want. So little towns, cities, big towns, they all depend on this cargo transport. So we play a very important role. So it's easy to see a traveling truck from one place to another, bringing products to families, to Argentinian tables, transporting Argentinian products. So it's a very important work, the one we do in this trade. Our federation consists of 13 departments with highly skilled professionals. At the Latin American level and nationally. Omar, I think we've got some problems hearing you correctly. So I'll make a suggestion. I'll give the floor to other colleagues so that they can also make their contributions. And in the meantime, Omar, my colleagues will try to sort out the technical problems. So if you don't mind, I'll assume that you say yes, and I'll welcome Roberto Guarnieri, the president of FADEAC. the Federation. We cannot hear him. So we have Roberto. Roberto is the president of the Federation of Cargo Transport Companies in Latin America. And you wanted to tell us about the importance of this sort of transport for Latin American economies. Yes, good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to share my views with you in Europe, Latin America. As Omar was saying, we are quite a recent organization. We've got 40 affiliated entities all throughout our republic, our country, Argentina. I want to welcome you all and to thank you for the huge effort you made to be with us. But now, Guillermo Veana, the Secretary General, will give you an overview on our topic. I apologize because I need to leave, but I thank you wholeheartedly for the occasion, and I'll pass the floor to Guillermo. Thank you, Roberto, and thank you, Mr. President. A good afternoon to you all again. I want to thank Madrid Platform for giving us the chance to be here today. It's an honor for us. As the President was saying, our organization represents the biggest transport organization, road transport organization in Argentina. We've been working, it's been active since 1967, and we represent entrepreneurs in this sector. That's why we are so strategic as a sector. And we are a benchmark institution for international organizations such as the International Organization for Road Transport and the Inter-American Chamber for Transport. 90% of goods and services in Argentina are transported by truck. Therefore, it's a very important means of transport for Argentina. Since the beginning, the onset of the pandemic, road transport was declared essential, precisely because it is essential to guarantee supply in the country. But we need to say that in 2020, we had some difficulties regarding regulations in internal borders within our country that were set up in order to prevent the virus from spreading around. This year, in 2021, we could solve this problem thanks to certain measures we adopted, but we still have problems with international borders, with our neighboring countries. We're still working on that. And as our president was saying, and the conductor, Omar Monti, the moderator, we've created a WhatsApp channel called Alertas FADEAC, for alerts, and we get advice on legislation in times of a pandemic in real time. FADEAC, our federation, as some of the panelists will say, consists of 13 departments, namely energy and sustainability, a technical department, public relations and community relations, SMEs, tax studies, security, tax and logistics, costs studies, internal department, international transport, legal affairs and insurances, parity department and liaison department, department for women, and the department for livestock and agriculture. We are also proud to have the academia on board from our country and from neighboring countries, namely the professional foundation for transport, and its president will be talking to us about that. They work on training drivers, they use their own software, and they are committed to keep on working on excellence for training. Let's hope that we can give you an overview on our main lines of activity and that this presentation is of interest to you all. So, if it's right for you, we'll start introducing some of the projects of our federation. All right. I myself conduct the Department for Energy and Sustainability of the Federation. We'll be introducing some of the projects we are working on. We are working on Rango Verde and biodiesel. We've got a strategic basket, an energy basket of renewable fuels, alternative fuels. We've got a specific project. Okay, next. As we saw, why did we choose biodiesel? Well, because it has a positive impact. It makes a positive impact on the environment. It's a closed cycle, so it's carbon neutral. Carbon stays within the atmosphere, and fossil fuel is not released further than that. So here we can see, I don't know whether you can see the slide properly. Argentina has 551 casualties out of 100,000 inhabitants because of pollution-related illnesses. Yes, Guillermo, we can see your slide correctly, so you can continue. The World Bank says that in Argentina, 1.1% of GDP is spent in environment-related diseases. In the case of Peru, this figure is 2.5%. So it's a huge expense because of environmental pollution. Biodiesel is compatible with the productive matrix of Argentina. Argentina is one of the main producers of soy. Biodiesel goes through a recycling process. It doesn't mean needing more hectares. We don't need to plant more soy in order to get that biodiesel. Next slide. Here you see the figures. 90% of cargo transport takes place on the road by truck, and it occupies a little bit more than 6.6 million cubic meters. Biodiesel has a current offer of 2,600,000 cubic meters. So we could go up to a capacity of more than 5 million cubic meters. There you can see the concentration of the parking fleet, the car fleet in Argentina. Next.
En este cuadro vemos que si bien este valor del biodiesel es inferior,
so even though the biodiesel value here is lower than the one we got when this slide was established, this is a relative figure depending on the price of the US dollar, of the crude oil barrel, and other factors. We want to start a transition process towards an energy mix of sustainable fuels so that we can develop regional economies, among other things. So we want to transform the energy matrix, the energy mix in the cargo transport. In the province of Santa Fe, there was a success story with micro buses, urban buses with biodiesel. So we evaluated the performance of biodiesel on real routes. We used 11 trucks with biodiesel and 11 trucks with another fuel in different sorts of landscape, mountainous or other. And it showed that the performance of B100 biodiesel was perfect. And nowadays, we are on a second stage. We are trying to measure the emissions of CO2, also sulfur emissions, and it will have a lot to do with caring about the environment. We want to have evidence on which we can base a good use of biodiesel. The final goal is to transform the energy matrix of cargo transport. Next. The main conclusions are these. This is a flexible system because we don't need to change our fleet of cars. Only some maintenance costs and costs related to replacing filters are remarkable. And now we have biodiesel available, and it's a sustainable fuel. So now we would go to Rango Verde, the other presentation.
Este es un programa que hemos lanzado desde nuestra federación para coordinar iniciativas en pos de la sustentabilidad y el cuidado del medio ambiente.
This is an initiative for the better of the environment, of the cargo transport sector.
El transporte se justifica justamente con la necesidad de llevar bienes de un lado a otro.
Transport deals with moving freight from one point to another. You have the geography, the trail, and the logistic costs. Next slide. Regarding the technology, in Argentina we have about 100
solo se corren en la parte
150,000
jurisdiccional
vehicles
y
that only
aproximadamente 500.000
operate
vehículos que
in a
hacen la
limited
línea
area,
interjurisdiccional.
and we had about
Adelante.
425,000 vehicles that have a longer
Por
haul,
ello, volviendo al anterior, con la necesidad de transportar bienes,
since we
necesitamos
need
definir un
to
ciclo de
transport
manejo.
freight
En
and
Europa creo
cargo.
que son 17 los ciclos de manejo.
We
Es
need
decir,
a
definir un
driving
perfil de
cycle.
carga,
In
un
Europe, you
perfil
have
de vehículo, de camión,
17. You
y un
need
perfil
to
de reemplazo.
define the profile of the
Con todo
freight,
esto,
of the
lo que buscamos es
truck,
la
and
optimización y
of
la
the
sustentabilidad
route.
del transporte de
And
cargas.
all of
Adelante.
that in order to make sure that freight transport is sustainable. Next slide.
La siguiente, por favor.
One more, please.
Una más.
One more.
Bueno, acá en el componente humano tenemos bastante para decir.
There is also the human
La capacitación,
component.
en nuestro caso, es llevado adelante por la fundación.
Training
Hablará su
is
presidente, Darío
the
Airaudo,
responsibility of
utilizando
a
tecnología
foundation.
y experiencia
We
para
use
alcanzar
technology
los
and experience
Los
to
objetivos son
meet
mejorar
our
la eficiencia
goals.
energética,
That is,
reducir las
better
emisiones de
energy
gases de efecto
efficiency,
invernadero, es decir,
less greenhouse
dióxido de
gas
nitrógeno, el
emissions,
óxido de
less
azufre
nitric
y el CO2,
oxide and
y
sulfur
reducir
oxide
también el
and
impacto
CO2,
que ocasionan los
and
desechos de la
also
materia particulada del
reduce the
retroalimentario.
impact of exhaust of
En la
particulate
salud,
matter.
el compromiso de tener un transporte limpio y eficiente nos ayuda a
We
reducir
want
la
to commit
contaminación del aire,
to
y
reduce
esto
air
nos da dos números.
pollution.
Un 24% de
Thus,
muertes
we will
cardíacas,
be able to have 24%
de
less
derrames cerebrales,
deaths due to
43%
heart
de
failure
enfermedades pulmonares
and
y un 29% en la
much
enfermedad
less
de cáncer de pulmón. Esto,
lung cancer, for
palabras de la doctora
example,
Lilian Corra.
according
Por todo
to
esto
Dr.
podemos decir
Lydian
que existe
Cora.
una relación
So
directa
we might
entre
say
las acciones para hacer un transporte
that
más
there
eficiente
is
y
a
sustentable
direct
y
link
recuperar la
between
salud de las personas.
being more efficient in our
Siguiente.
transport sector and improving health.
Con todo esto debemos seguir adelante
So
para
this
aprender,
means that we need
aplicar lo
to
aprendido
persevere in order to learn and to
mejorarlo
make
continuamente.
good use of what
Muchas
we've
gracias.
learned and try to innovate at all times. Thank you.
Sí, buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Emilio,
Emilio, we can hear you loud and clear, so
Sí,
go ahead.
necesitaría, bueno, primero, buenas tardes.
I'd like
a
to
todos. Creo que
first
estamos muy
greet
contentos
everyone.
desde FADEAC de participar en
In
este
FADEAC, we are very
Madrid
happy
Platform, y en
to
este sentido,
participate in
primero
Madrid
que
Platform.
quería agradecer
So let me
a
first of all say thank you to Alejandro
que de
Gallardo
forma paralela al Departamento de Relaciones
and
Institucionales de
to
FADEAC, con quien llevamos adelante
the
la
Department of
participación en el transporte de
Institutional
carga
Relations of our
previamente en el gobierno de
organization,
tanto para las
who has
relaciones
made our
económicas como
participation
comerciales de
possible.
Iberoamérica, ¿no? Lo que
So,
les pediría ahora si podrían subir el
would it
PowerPoint,
be
la presentación
possible
institucional.
to
Exactamente.
load
Bueno,
my
digamos,
PowerPoint?
en esta
Yes?
presentación
Thank you.
lo que voy a hacer es resumir y
In my
profundizar de
presentation,
alguna
I'm
manera
going
algunas
to
cuestiones que ya se
elaborate on
mencionaron,
some of
intentar
the issues that have
resumir
already been
en 10-15
pointed
minutos las
out,
principales
and
características de
in
actividad y
10-15
¿no?
minutes, I'll
Y en
give
este
you
sentido, dentro del hilo
an
conductor de la
idea of our
disertación, vamos a
activity
identificar
in
tres
Argentina.
principales características dentro
We have
de este hilo
three
conductor que les estaba
main
comentando recién. A ver, les pido a
characteristics
ver si
that I would like to
podemos ver
point out.
la siguiente
Could
figurita, por
we
favor.
please move on to the next slide?
Bueno, en primer lugar, esto ya se mencionó, pero quiero profundizarlo. Vamos a referirnos a la gravitación de la actividad
We
en
will
la
be
economía, donde el transporte de cargas
dealing
representa más del
with
90% del total
the
de la
fact
carga
that
de la economía y está presente en prácticamente
freight
todos los sectores económicos,
transport
tanto en empresas
is
con minoristas.
90% of the whole
La
transport
siguiente, por favor.
activity in Argentina. with the
Por ejemplo, está
corresponding
abarcando diferentes modos de transporte,
weight it
diferentes
carries.
viajes largos,
We
frentes
have
cortos, distribución
medium,
logística,
short, long
participa también
haul
el sector esclave
distribution,
como
logistics,
automotriz
and we also
y fármaco,
participate in the
componentes clave en la
automotive
distribución de las
sector,
vacunas, alimentos, construcción,
pharmaceuticals,
petróleo,
vaccines,
agro,
which is
etcétera. O
now
sea,
of the essence,
los sectores
food,
claves de la
construction,
economía
oil, and
ha
agribusiness,
venido
the key
creciendo en
sectors in
forma
our
relevante con
economy,
el
and that
incremento
has
del
been
comercio internacional,
on the
o
increase
sea, el comercio intrarregional en los
with the
países limítrofes,
international
y en uno de los
trade
sectores
and the
más
regional
dinámicos de
trade
la economía en
with
el sector agropecuario, por
neighboring
ejemplo, el transporte
countries.
carretero
And for
está
example,
representando hoy más del
in
85% de
livestock
la carga del volumen
transport,
de cargas.
we have
La siguiente,
about
por favor.
85% of this
O
transport
sea,
activity.
vamos dentro de
So,
este hilo conductor. La primera característica
along
clave es
this line, there
justamente
is a
la
key
gravitación de la
element,
actividad en la economía argentina, ¿no? Y
the fact
también a
that
esto le vamos a agregar
our
como segundo punto clave que es la
sector
morfología de la actividad.
carries a lot
Acá
of
un
weight
poquito
in our
lo comentaba el
country's
secretario de Información del
economy.
FADEAC, de un
As
país con una geografía muy
the previous
extensa,
speaker
muy
said,
diversa
we
y de
have a
larga
very
distancia,
diverse, very
donde un mismo
ample
territorio vincula
geography with very
diversas
different
zonas geográficas, ¿no? Esto
geographical
implica que en el país
areas.
exista diversidad
There
de
is
corredores, muchos de ellos muy distintos en su operatoria, o
a
sea, con muchos
great
diferenciales en
diversity
cuanto
of
a costos y en cuanto a
operators.
operatoria, aunque con denominadores
Costs
comunes.
and
En
operational
general,
modes do
lo que
differ
vamos a
widely.
verificar son cuatro grandes canales en lo que es la economía argentina y su
We have
conformación económica. En primer lugar, bueno, el área, lo que es
following
digamos,
actions.
la capital y Gran Buenos Aires.
The area
En
around the
segundo
capital,
lugar,
Buenos Aires,
lo que es
that's
el área
one
del
area.
Gran Rosario.
Then we
En
have the
tercer lugar,
area
lo que
of
sería,
Gran
o sea,
Rosario,
el área del Gran Rosario, donde están los puertos, donde
where we have
prácticamente se
the
le da
big
salida a la producción agropecuaria. En tercer lugar,
ports
lo que sería la zona núcleo, es
with
decir,
the
provincia de Buenos
livestock
Aires, Santa
export
Fe,
activity.
Córdoba.
Then we have
En cuarto lugar, la
Santa
zona
Fe,
Cuyo. En quinto
Córdoba,
lugar,
then
la
the
zona
Cuyo area
NEA-NOA
and the
y por último la
NEA-NOA
zona de la Patagonia. A
area,
ver,
and
por favor, con la siguiente
last not
filmina, a
least,
ver si podemos
Patagonia.
ver
Maybe we
estos
can
grandes diferenciales. Acá
move on.
vemos el territorio extenso de
Here
la
you can
Argentina, sus
see
diversas
this
zonas
large
geográficas
territory with
y
the
las
various
características distintas
geographical
que tiene cada actividad. O sea,
regions
veamos un
and
camión
the
en la
different
Patagonia, donde
profiles
el
of
transporte con
the cargo
cada
activity in
cadena, con
Patagonia,
tanto frío que hace en la Patagonia,
with
es
the
totalmente
enormous
distinto que el
cold and
transporte de
snowfall.
hacienda, por
You
ejemplo, en la zona
need
núcleo, y
to
también totalmente distinto que
take
un
completely different
transporte de
measures
distribución urbana
than
en
in
la
an
zona
urban
urbana.
setting.
Ahora, todos tienen un denominador común, que es
But there is
cada
a
camión
common
que tiene como insumo
denominator
principal
that you
el
have
precio del
a
combustible, ¿no?
truck
O sea, dentro
with
de este
the
país
determining
con tanta
factor
gravitación
of
del
fuel
transporte de
consumption.
carga de la economía y con tanta
With
diversidad
all
geográfica y
this
de corredores, vamos
geographic
a ver el denominador
diversity,
común, que es justamente
with
la
this
actividad del sector transportes.
very
La siguiente, por
diverse
favor.
sector that we have, still we do have
Bueno,
this
esto es
one
un
element in
poquito,
common,
yo no
fuel
llego a ver
consumption.
bien la señal, esto un poquito lo señaló recién Guillermo
Now,
Werner, es
this has
el
already
parque
been
automotor
pointed out
del
by
país,
Guillermo
casi
Juan,
500.000 vehículos, un
about
poquito menos, pero en torno a 500.000
500,000
vehículos motorizados y a los
motor
un poquito más de
vehicles,
200.000 vehículos
a little
remolcados,
more
que
than
abarca, digamos, todas las
200,000
geográficas. Estos
trailers
dominios
in the
empadronados en
various
la ruta, que es
geographical
el transporte
areas,
interjurisdiccional. Después hay más equipos en
long
lo que es
haul,
el transporte propio de cada provincia,
and then
pero la
also
mayor
at
parte
a
de los dominios
provincial level,
se concentra en lo que es transporte interjurisdiccional.
but
Y a
mostly
pesar, y ahí ya vamos a la
we
siguiente
have
filmina,
long
por
haul
favor.
activity.
A la siguiente filmina, por favor.
Next
Bueno,
slide, please.
a pesar de esta diversidad geográfica
So we
que
have a
tiene el país y que recién les
geographical
mencionaba,
diversity,
el 50%
but
de los
still
equipos se concentran tanto
50%
en la Ciudad Autónoma de Buenos
of
Aires como
the
en el Gran
fleet is
Buenos Aires.
concentrated
Y si
in
le sumamos
Buenos
Santa
Aires
Fe y
and the
Córdoba, que son
surrounding
las
area, and if
provincias
we
siguientes
add
en
to that
importancia
Santa
económica de
Fe
la
and
población,
Córdoba, the
más o
next
menos se llega a un
highest
70%
ranking
de los dominios concentrados en estas
areas in
cuatro provincias.
economic
Esto
terms,
a pesar de
then
la diversidad
you see
regional,
the degree
como
of
el NEA,
concentration
NOA
of
en
the
el
truck
litoral,
fleet
obviamente la importancia de la
Patagonia obviously is important, and other areas too. But where most people live and where there's more economic activity, you will find more trucks, obviously. Now, thirdly, so first we were talking about the geography, the haul modes, short, medium, and long hauls, and then the economic weight our activity carries in the real economy, most of all. Next slide. So, our sector has seen an increase in investment recently that correlates, as you can see, investment in trucks and trailers in times of economic growth, 2012, 2013, the sales have been above 26,000 units. But conversely, in the last 2 years, 2019 and 2020, with the economic drawbacks, the drop in economic activity of about 10% or more, like in many other countries, we have seen less than half of the unit sales of previous years. Next slide. This is the graph that shows the GDP growth, strong growth that is interrupted in 2009 with the international subprime crisis. That's going to impact globally. And in Argentina, we had a historical drought, and we had a recovery phase. But lately, there's been a decline due to the pandemic. Obviously, there's been a major drop. But the good news is that we are on the path of recovery. Like everyone else in Madrid platform, we are on the lookout for the recovery worldwide and the rate at which each country and each economy is going to recover. But the good news is that we are recovering at a rate of a little more than 6%. Last year, the prognosis was 4% only. So, what are the main drivers that are boosting this growth? We've had a quite considerable growth. It's the first year of growth in the last 4 years, actually. What are the drivers? The very good agro-business activity with very good results in soy, wheat, and corn, and with very good price levels on top. So soy, together with corn, is a major commodity in our country with record pricing, actually. And this obviously ripples through the equipment sector and four-wheel drive motor vehicles, for example, more hauls. So there is recovery in this area. And another sector that is a driver is private and public construction. consumption is 70% of GDP. Obviously, it's going to show a less strong recovery. But what is really boosting recovery is the very good situation in the agro-food industry and in the construction field. Next slide. This is one of the important indicators. We need to measure the evolution of the costs, the cost of the hauls, and the costs of the geography of our country. And that is why I always circle back to the previous point. It's a very large country. And that needs to be borne in mind. Here you can see how the costs have been evolving in the late years. Fuel carries a lot of weight in the increase of costs. Next slide. We'll be talking about the FADEAC index that reflects the mix of the major costs in our sector. Next slide. What do we do to analyze and break down the costs, always making a difference between fixed costs and variable costs? That's, in our opinion, the best way of analyzing it. You can speak about different distances and logistic distribution, but there's always a breakdown of cost that is applicable everywhere in the world. You have fixed and variable costs. In FADEAC, that is our way of calculating. Next slide. So, 6 categories of variable costs. Here, fuel is most important, between 33 and 38%. Then you have the lubricants and the tires, about 16-18%, and then insurance and repairs and maintenance, toll and others. Last slide. This is what we've been seeing in our sector of late. Modernization, cost calculation, applying technology to transport has provided growth in the last years. And moving on, and in closing, let's say we look for consistency and transparency. That's what we strive for, so that the cost structure studies of our federation really meet acceptance. I talked about soy and about the COVID situation. Food commodities and energy commodities are also evolving, and we need to bear that in mind. Thank you. Thank you, Madrid Platform. Yes, thank you. I think we still need to listen to Silvia Sudol, who is with Guillermo Kaniewski. Is that right? Good afternoon, Silvia. The International Transport Department of the Foundation, Guillermo Kaniewski. You both are directors in this department. Is that right? Yes. Thank you. I don't know if you can hear us well. Let's give you an idea of our main activity and functions of our department in FADEAC. We do support the activity of FADEAC at an international transport level and intervene before international and national administrations and try to connect entities and companies also in the region and internationally. Let's look at these activities and what is the setting in which we operate. We do work in a specific setting. The land transportation agreement that is most important for Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay, Peru, and Uruguay, the signatory countries of this agreement that provides the framework for all our activities. We have a video that we would like to show you to showcase our main activities. In international transport in Latin America and in the South, oftentimes we have a lack of efficiency at border crossings. Here you can see us, Guillermo and Hernan, another colleague of us who can't be with us today. He's a bit of our institutional interface. So a few pictures of the most important international border crossing in this region. Our dry port, most important dry harbor with Brazil, where we have a transit of about 1,000 or 2,000 trucks. To date is about 700 or 1,000 trucks. And here you have another picture. Here's between Argentina and Chile. Cristo Redentor de Libertadores at a quite elevated location, about 1,300, 200, with a lot of transit, more than 1,000 trucks roll through this point. In both cases, you not only have transit of Brazilian or Chilean or Argentinian trucks, but you need to go through these points to go to Peru, for example. So many from Brazil or Uruguay necessarily need to go through this border crossing, or others with Chile. But this is a recurrent matter that we have dedicated quite a lot of attention. It's not only a matter of infrastructure, but also operational problems, regulatory problems, and lack of connectivity. It's a huge bundle of problems, and there is a lot of room for improvement in Mercosur, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, plus associated countries like Chile with a very active participation, less than Bolivia. And here, for example, we deal with these issues and try to negotiate. In this subgroup number 5 in Mercosur, we talk about weights and transportation of dangerous goods and safety for drivers, and obviously of late the advent of COVID-19 and all that has meant for us. the private sector participates also very actively, regularly. We have contact before we participate in these meetings of the subgroup number 5 of Mercosur. Oftentimes, lately, we had to call in emergency meetings due to the pandemic. So this transport agreement is key. And this is a setting in which we operate to deal with all the needs to update everything related to transport operations, transport of cargo, but also of passengers and of railway transport. That is not our province, but it has to do with tariffs and with health. This land transport agreement allows for bilateral contacts, tripartite contacts in cases of common interest, and multilateral agreements or meetings. These meetings are called in our case, for example, through our corresponding department in the Transport Ministry. We also participate at an international level with the ITU. Here you have our managers, but also our technicians that participate. In 2018, the TIR booklets were approved, and we do hope that Brazil will also approve it so that we can apply it at a broader regional level. Furthermore, FAREAC participates in the Inter-American Transport Chamber together with colleagues in the region, also with Mexico and the United States, and invited guest countries. There we have to deal with technical matters and of common interest, and sometimes companies partner up to do business. And also, sometimes the message gets through to the UN to showcase the importance of our transportation sector.
Thank you very much, Silvia. Good afternoon to you all. It's a pleasure to be here at this roundtable in Madrid platform. I'll try to focus on three main aspects, namely, first of all, how FEDEAC acts in the case of the COVID pandemic. Secondly, what we do with transport companies in Argentina and facilitating international trade. And thirdly, short-term and long-term improvements for infrastructures for improving connectivity and our relations with international markets. Regarding the pandemic, together with other corporate entities in the region, we cooperated with the health measures. There were obstacles for the free movement, closing borders. Sometimes control was excessive for trucks and drivers. And in response to these difficulties, we've promoted having PCR tests valid for 7 days, both for national and international agents. Also, a list of drivers and the trying to prevent contagion among staff and spreading the virus. We've tried to work with the public sector, trying to protect human resources, cooperating regarding sanitary measures, and keeping up the logistic chain. In relation to road transport for cargo, as facilitating trades, FEDEAC promotes different programs. OEA is one example, for example, of the customs organization, the international customs organizations, trying to promote security measures and good practices in the chains for international supply. Some of the advantages of OEA are related to... Sorry, the sound is not good enough. A single window for external trade, presenting documents and formalized files in one single step, facilitating procedures. Also, the tier customs agreement was another important step, and our expectation was to reduce logistic costs by 40%. I'm talking about an international transit system with the cooperation of the United Nations, and this facilitates exchanges on the road. With customs precincts, transport can flow more rapidly. Now we count on the support of Chile and Uruguay. We hope we can expand this cooperation. The internationalization together with Brazil would be a good step as well. And last but not least, I would like to emphasize the importance of infrastructure works for different means of transport. We need private sector, but also international funding and the Development Bank of Latin America and other actors. We can find different projects for the Paraná River and others, bio-oceanic corridors, the new tunnel for Agua Negra, the mountain ridge of the Andes, and for that we need more infrastructure works and the cooperation together with the private sector. The Sotomesa Borja connection is one example. It is important to have those corridors towards external markets, integration of economic areas with transport, energy, and infrastructure put together. We also need to care about the environment and promote the growth of SMEs. That way, projects will also be socially sustainable. So to conclude, we need to promote the integration of the whole Latin American region and markets where public and private entities can cooperate. More professionalism of our activity will be an important factor, and that way our transport companies will be more competitive and contribute to economic growth in general. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our panelists, Silvia and Guillermo. We've run out of time. They're going to close our doors. But I'd like to talk to Darío Airaudo, the president of the Professional Foundation for Transport. At least I'd like to say hello to him. A good afternoon to you. We could tell you about many things. Our foundation is the academia-related arm in the sector of drivers in relation to the transport industry. We focus on safety on the road, environmental protection, and promoting the value chain, focusing on supply. In our foundation, we have different courses, private courses and mandatory courses. Mandatory courses are required by Argentinian law, and private courses, on the other hand, are related to the transport of dairies, fuels, urban transport, forestry-related transport. Darío, can you hear me? Yes, I can. I'm very sorry, but we only have a couple of minutes left, so if we could give us a headline or a very few words or a very short message that you would like to transmit to us before running out of time and out of connection. Well, the main thing I would like to emphasize is that we are training and enabling the workforce of the transport industry of the whole country. 90% of drivers study with us, are trained with us. We are in 24 provinces of the country, and we've got 18,000 drivers that study with us every month. I could say many more things. We've got our own technology, simulators for training. Together with human resources, we've got technology, innovation, research, and development. Unfortunately, I would like to say many more things. We've got the international course for forest-related transport with Uruguay. We've got the transport of trunks. But anyway, I thank you for this chance to address you, and welcome to our route. Darío, we thank you. The Argentinian route. You've got wonderful landscapes and a wonderful route. We thank Darío Airaudo, the president of the Professional Foundation for Transport. We also thank FADEAC, the FADEAC Foundation. They told us about the importance of cargo transport for the Latin American region and for Argentina. We're talking about a 90% figure. And we thank you all participants and our panelists, and we will be here for you tomorrow in room 4. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.